Welcome to episode 3 of Bucky Builds, where I'm continuing my journey to take my first video game from ideation all the way to release. If you haven't been following along, make sure to check out the last one here. At the end of the last episode, we had the foundation of our game and built something that was actually playable, which of course would not have been possible without the help of my incredibly talented game dev guru bestie, Master Crab. I'm Bucky Mayer, and in this episode, we're starting with our first update in getting the game to feel more like something we'd actually want to play. And as mentioned in the last episode, we're going to start with adding a hub menu that opens on start with the possibility to build more into it later, and a scoring system so players have something to play for. Let's hop right into it. The first thing we need if we're making a menu is a menu background. Splash art, so to speak. Now again, I'm no artist and will later be outsourcing and replacing all the designs by someone who actually is once we have a fun game. So I opened my budget Photoshop, Photopea, backup, and got to work. I started with one of my tree assets as I wanted to make sure the menu feels representative of the experience players were going to get and fit the garbage aesthetic that I'd created. To represent the idea of our player going on an actual journey, my idea for the splash was to show a long road ahead with a glorious payoff of a castle. I started with the foreground, and after struggling with applying a gradient to the path, I got to work on the background and adding trees as well as placing a Google yoinked castle. And after adding the sun and a blue sky and finishing it off, I got to work on the menu title. Oh geez, a game title? Well, I don't want to spend ages as this is just likely a placeholder, so I went for a totally original Legend of Bucky. It's original, by the way, because if I was copying The Legend of Zelda, we'd be using Tester Tanuki's name. I mean, that or I'd be the princess, and I'm definitely not pretty enough for that role. Alright, now it's time to get this into Unity. I'll need a new scene first for the menu, and then I'll add my menu splash image that we just made, adjusting its scale and position. After that, it's button time. I'm going to reuse my button that I made in the past video and make the text a simple play. Now we need it to actually do something, so I'm going to create a new script. How we're going to build this is to start by making it so that when play is clicked, the scene changes to the next scene. That'll take us to the actual game. And after applying that script to our button on click, we can save and look at a way to get back to the menu once you lose in the game. So going back to the game scene, I'm going to go into our game over panel and duplicate the restart button, since I still want the player to be able to choose whether they want to keep running or go back to the menu to upgrade after they lose. Next, I need to make it so that when the duplicated button is clicked, it takes us back to the previous scene, so we can get back to the menu. And we do that by simply editing the game over script to add a new menu function. Then with some quick changing of position and text editing, we have our secondary CTA of going to the menu. A problem I noticed here is that on testing, while the buttons all worked properly in getting you where you need to go, the menu button hitbox seemed to mostly overlap with the restart one, making it really hard to restart. Well, speed bumps are no fun, so I decided to move on to score for now and come back to this later. For score, I decided to just add a UI text to my canvas and put it at the top of the screen. To make it do anything though, I'll need a script, so I'll create one called Score Manager. In here, we'll create a variable for score text and a float to represent the player's score itself. I wanted score to be tied to the level manager I made in the last episode, and the current level the player was on, so I serialized the level tracker and made it so that the score would be equal to the current level. Then I added the level manager to the score manager on the score text object, and we had a score, although it was kind of boring. As a player, just seeing a 1 for ages until we eventually leveled up would be pretty unexciting. This is happening because while the level is constantly increasing, it's increasing in a very small decimal amount that isn't shown in an integer. So what we had to do is make it so that we pulled in the full float decimal, but multiplied the value by 100 and rounded it to an integer after it was multiplied. This gives us a much more exciting, ever-increasing whole number. So now, back to that menu bug. I did a little Googling, then decided it was time to call in the big guns. Or big claws, I mean. The big claws, of course, being Master Crab. Master Crab luckily was able to hop in a Discord call with me as I went over the issue of the menu button and restart button overlapping. We found that my PNG for the button was actually just too big, and that's what was causing the problem. So after quickly replacing the button image with a better cropped version, then resizing all of the button images since they were now massive, we fixed the hitbox problem. And there we go, version 0.2 in all of its glory. However, we still have a long way to go, and immediately what comes to mind for me as a competitive player is that when there's a score, it's kind of meaningless if I, as a player, can't know what my highest score was, so that I know what I'm trying to beat. And because I'm going to TwitchCon next week, we're going to make our first half version by releasing just high score as version 0.25, which we'll build out in our next video. I can't wait to keep building out the legend of Bucky in the next episodes of Bucky Builds, and hope you're excited too. Make sure to like if you are, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you next time, and thank you so much for watching.